Here's our final part. So we take all these and we put it into the job characteristics model. Yes, we need another chart, right? So core job characteristics, right? Cause the critical psychological state, right? Which causes the outcomes. And this is kind of an overview of everything we've discussed in certain respects, right? So job core characteristics. What do we look in the characteristics model? What's the skill variety employed in doing the task? Right? What is the task identity and what is the task significance? So a lot of this ties back to meaningfulness as a component of self-actualization in Maslowian terms, right? The sense of autonomy, that is, I am my own boss. I am my prime mover. Like my example just in the previous part about changing the squeeze rule. We're now allowed to do that, and we're trusted to do that, and we have the measurements to support our decision, right? And the feedback from the job. That is, as we learn to measure more and more, the job informs us as to the quality of our performance, right? So that really is tied to the core job characteristics. What are the benefits? Well, we experience meaningfulness of work. Meaningfulness is tied to self-actualization. Experience responsibility for the work outcome to a greater and greater extent, and notice that's tied to the autonomy as well. And then knowledge of the actual results of the work activities, I can see what's happening. For too many years, a factory worker did their one little task, and you know, I know it's going to sound weird, but there are people who actually in production line type work did some operation on a part and they don't even know what the part is for. They're just told that you do this to that part. They had no picture of their position in the greater scheme of things. Right? Just do your job, shut up, and work faster was kind of the criteria. But what are the outcomes to this? High intrinsic work motivation, that is, people want to work for the sake of working, right? High growth satisfaction, high general job satisfaction. Again, satisfaction that's motivating, in Hertzberg's terms, these are kind of growth level motivators. And then a high work effectiveness, that is, I become better and better at what I do. So, what are the moderators? Well, knowledge and skill. Growth needs strength. Some people don't want to grow. They just want to do the same old, right? Some people are more knowledgeable and skillful, and they'll operate better in this context. And then the context satisfaction, determined by one's understanding of what they do and their place in it. So, general model, organization of rewards then. Types of rewards. There can be financial material, and we call these extrinsic motivators. Social motivation, that is recognition, is also an extrinsic motivator. Psychic, though, are intrinsic motivators, and understanding Deming is key to this, because when I start measuring my process, I start making experiments to continuously improve, and that bears out in the measures. I'm doing this because self-improvement and work improvement has become an aspect of my identity. So it becomes an increasingly intrinsic, located in the person motivator. Right? So, why do we bother with these rewards? Well, we want to attract people to our organization or our department. We want to motivate people. We want to develop people. So we're in the business of being people developers. Satisfy people and retain people. And we know the expense of employee turnover. When people are dissatisfied and they leave, it's a costly endeavor to replace them. Huh? Now, the organizational reward norms have either a favorable or unfavorable moderating effect on this relationship as demonstrated. So some organizations want to get as much as they can for as little money, and that's profit maximization. So when we look at Ohio State and we say, okay, so let's take a class like Psychology of Emotion. This was a 60-person class. But why don't we try it with 90 people? Or why don't we try it with 120? Or why don't we try it with 150? Notice my pay rate stays the same. I got $6,600 because I'm a senior lecturer for teaching that class. But if you can increase the number of students in that class by 150%, or that's profit maximization. Notice I don't share in that. You don't share in that. The company takes it. So some companies, their norm is to maximize profitability, right? Now, equity. Some organizations then operate on a norm where you're rewarded for the performance you put out. Some organizations say everyone should be paid equally, and that's an equality norm, right? And then others say, hey, it really depends on the needs, and we're going to compensate people on the basis of their needs. Okay? And the need idea, let's flip that around. I remember, and I've told you this story before, when my mom was a casting director and just starting out, right, before she could really cut her own deals. And she'd say, you're paying me half what you paid the male casting director that was doing the show before me. And they would respond to her, well, Pam, he has a family. And that is, they're thinking in terms of rewarding on the basis of need. He has a need to support his family. My mother had a family too. Now it's me and her, but that's still a family, right? And then the distribution. Do we distribute on the basis of results, that is pay per performance, or do we pay on behavior, that is effort, right? Or are there some other factors on which we base our pay? So the organizational reward norms, then, what do we end up with? Profit maximization, reward equity. These are the explanations of what we just described. So, how do we distribute? Well, performance or results, performance, actions, and behaviors. So these are just summaries, these slides. Or non-performance. This is one that's not mentioned on the previous slides. As a union employee, right, you're rewarded on the basis of seniority. And notice that in our organization, tenure becomes all important, right? So, what are the desired outcomes of the reward system? We want to attract people. We want to motivate. We want to develop. We want to satisfy their needs and retain them. Notice, we can measure each one of these. So, if we adopt, we say, we need a new reward system, and let's invoke the Holy Trinity, right? We need a new reward system. We develop a program, a new reward program, then we need to measure the results. Does it work? And yes, they can all be measured. Now, when we talk about psychology of motivation, we explore a tremendous number of aspects of motivation through that course. And through doing this, I'm becoming less and less of a fan of extrinsic motivators, money specifically. Too much emphasis on monetary rewards, right? So why do extrinsic rewards fail to motivate? Well, most of them because they become expectations, right? Rewards lack an appreciation effect. Extensive benefits become entitlements. That is, and remember what Maslow said, if you meet someone's need, you satisfy that need's no longer a motivator. This is very much the similar idea. That is, once I get used to a certain level of reward, I get used to it. Notice, it's not a reward anymore, it's just an entitlement. It just goes with the territory. We often see the counterproductive behaviors being rewarded. That is, we look at other people in the organization who are slacking off, but they get the same pay. Or they do damage, but no one seems to do anything about it. We often see counterproductive behaviors being rewarded. Politically, we see that an awful lot of politicians generate a huge number of rewards for themselves by lying and cheating. Right? So, too long a delay between performance and rewards, so we can't necessarily connect the two. Now, notice that we talked about that punishment needs to be swift, right? So do rewards, so that we make a strong connection between the behavior and the consequence. There's too many one-size-fits-all rewards, and nothing's more demotivating than receiving a reward that you don't want or you don't care about or is meaningless to you. So often the skill in determining rewards is determining what this person will like, right? Use of one-shot rewards with short-lived motivational. So we might have this miniature bonus, right, that comes at us, and it's gone, and it loses its effect in almost immediately. Continued use of demotivating practices such as layoffs, across-the-board raises and cuts. So we have pay freeze here at Ohio State. That's awesome, right? But then we look at people, there's higher-ups in the organization who make just tremendous amount of money. I mean, I understand football is important to Ohio State. Football is important to the country. Football is important to a lot of people. But seriously, does a football coach deserve to make 100 times what I make? And I mean, that's an interesting question, right? Because if they love coaching, why do they need to be paid that much? Why do they need the extrinsic motivation? Why don't they just, if for the love of it, why don't they do it for what I make? And this is a problem with extrinsic rewards, right? So, pay for performance. This is additional pay above normal wage designed to create extra effort. Piece rate plans. This is you pay for the actual number of objects made. This doesn't happen too much anymore. It was far more common back in the Industrial Revolution. The idea was if someone is making hammers, pay them for each hammer they make and they'll work faster so they can make more money. But we know that Deming would say this is horrible because the system constrains how many hammers can be made, not the worker. Current results indicate incentive success is tied to overall success of the business. These can be great if the business is good, but if the business isn't good, then they fail to work as motivators. Think about distributing our points across the course. What do you think? Based on teamwork or collective results, we know these are iffy propositions. So take a look through there, see what you think of these, right? And then sometimes we can get our rewards from catalogs. They did this at Boise Cascade, my 5-year, they say, hey, congratulations, you're 5 years. You get to pick anything out from the first 5 pages of this catalog, which is the 5-year section. So what do you want to pick out for yourself? Tell you the truth, it'd be nice if my manager gave me a present that they could demonstrate to me that they knew me and they figured out what I would like, that they actually showed some interest rather than just tossing a catalog at me, right? It's immediate recognition, it's lower cost, there's increased choice, but it's impersonal, right? And if you're doing this online, employees have to be wired, although that's becoming more and more common in this day and age. But how do diverse cultures respond to this? And that's something. And what about individual differences? As you can see, I'm not impressed. Other people might be impressed. So, moving through here, a couple slides left to go. Hang out, guys, right? Building blocks for intrinsic reward and motivation. What do? Let's start emphasizing these components, right? So you can take a look at the chart here. What I want to do, though, is go on to the summary page. Lead for meaningfulness, right? Inspire and model the appropriate behaviors. Demonstrate to people the meaning of their contribution to the workplace. Empower and delegate people. Give people choice, and that leads to autonomy. Lead for competence. Provide people with the support, the training, and the coaching so that they can grow and self-actualize, right? And then lead for progress. Monitor and reward and move it forward, and really reward creativity. Even when creativity can often lead to repeated failures, encourage it, right? So that's from Kenneth Thomas and leading for change, right? Leading for success. And that's about all I got for you. So check out homework 14. And you'll see where it ties back to these individual components within the lecture. You guys have a good day. I think you would love that sneeze at the end, right?